Hey guys, Bryan here from Liquid Concepts. So today we're going to talk a little bit about a scope. So a lot of people will ask us to do scopes and all that, and of course, you know, we definitely will. Couple of things to remember whenever you're doing a scope. Whether it's a high-end scope or a low-end scope, you definitely want to make sure that you seal it up as best you can. And so one thing that we've done here is that we've got a plug that we can put in the actual front objective of this lens. And then of course on the back side, we've taped up the lens very well as we've also covered everything up on the front side right here. So then that way everything is completely covered and we're good to go. So the other thing is that if you'll notice, you've got these two turrets right here, of course, for your windage and elevation, just like normal. And so then of course you've got your larger and your smaller objectives. So there's a couple of ways that you can dip this. So the first way is that the way that most people will see them, most manufacturers, they just go just like that and they're ready to go. There's nothing wrong with that. It gets it done and it looks pretty good. The only thing is that it does want to stretch the pattern out just a little bit. So of course, us being an aftermarket company, we want to try to improve on that. And so what we normally try to do is that we will actually roll the scope instead of actually just going straight down. Now again, there's not a lot of benefit to rolling it versus straight down, but in an aftermarket setting, whenever you're not doing hundreds at one time, rolling it does offer the best benefit as far as keeping the pattern as crisp and as clean as possible and making it to where there's a minimal amount of stretch compared to there can be a lot more stretch as it wraps around the whole scope itself. So what we're going to do here is we're going to lay out this film. Now of course this is going to be a camouflage that the customer has picked, and then we're going to dip it in that camouflage. So the film that we're actually working with today is going to be the True Timber Canati. And so as you can see here, it's a great looking pattern. It's a little bit harder to see, but we'll put a sheet of paper underneath here. That way you can kind of take a look at it. Good looking pattern, really great photorealistic color, depth, detail, and everything like that. So it's going to look really good on the scope. So the one thing to remember is whenever you're doing this scope is that trees grow upwards. Now, I know everybody knows that, but you also have to keep that in mind whenever you're doing your scope, because actually if you dip this, you can actually make these trees as the scope is sitting go this way or this way. So just keep that in mind, that whenever you are dipping your part, to make sure that those trees try to go up and down as much as possible, so that way it helps blend in a lot better. So let's go ahead and get this cut out and we'll get started with it. So now with something like this right here, we can start, we'll give ourselves a couple of inches of excess over, and then we will pretty much go like that. So that's really about all that we need. Now I could cut it right here and I'm good, but the problem is I can't actually hold it. So this actually turns into a situation where it's very similar to like a Yeti cup or something like that. And so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the film off right here, but I'm actually going to go all the way over to probably about halfway, just because I'm not really going to need any more than that. But that way now I can easily hold that scope, go down, twist it, and I'm good to go. So the other thing is that we need to make sure that whenever the scope is sitting here and it's on the gun and everything, that we put it on the bottom side. So we just need to make sure that whenever we grab this scope, that it is ready to go and we put it on the bottom side of the scope, not the actual top or the side or anything like that. Because as the scope's sitting there, we want to make sure that it is pretty much on the bottom, so that way nobody sees it and the pattern looks the best all the way around. So we'll take this, we'll roll that over about 180, and then we're good to go. Now the one thing to make sure of is too, as you're going down into this into the dip, is that you start at an angle like this and then you finish it level. Once you finish it level, then you can roll it, and you want to roll it on into the film. Now you don't want to go fast, you just want to go nice and easy and slow as we're going to be doing. So we're going to go ahead and because the scope sits like this, we're going to go ahead and put the line down here on the bottom like that and have it ready to go. Now the other thing that you'll notice is that we've painted everything, had it all prepped and ready, but if you notice, we actually have all of this taped off. So like a lot of the area surrounding here, the name of the scope, the objective, plus or minus, the dot, the actual numbers on the scope and everything like that, we actually still kept the original graphics on. So then that way, whenever the customer gets it, he knows exactly where everything is, he knows what power he's on, and of course you can still read what it is, whether it's a Leupold or a Nikon or anything in between. You can pretty much know exactly everything that was originally done on the scope. Now of course, if it was done from a manufacturer, they would dip it and then etch it all in and it'd look all nice and pretty, but we don't have the capability to do that, so this is going to be the next best thing, and it's still going to look really nice, really clean, really detailed. So let's go ahead, get this in the water and get started. Alright, so we'll lay this down in the water like this, set that down, start our timer. So again, 60 seconds on the water at 80 to 90 degrees, and we'll pull our dividers in. And on this one, I'm actually going to just kind of pull that off to the side a little bit. Now you can see it's starting to stretch just that little bit, so I'm going to give it a little bit of room for expansion just to kind of stretch out. You see how it's all, it was really textured, had a lot of wrinkles in it, gave it that little bit of room to expand, and now everything is pretty much just as smooth as can be. So we can go ahead, pull this back down like this, and now we're pretty much ready to go. So we'll grab some gloves on and then get started. All right, so 60 seconds on the clock, and we're just gonna do one pass straight across. All right, so looks like everything glassed out really nice. So now all we're gonna do is we're gonna start in probably about right here. And so we're just gonna come down and then go about halfway, and then come down about halfway right there, and then slowly just roll it around just like this all the way until we get to the end, and then we're good. Now, the one thing to remember is that inevitably this is a scope. So you want to make sure that whenever you're doing this, you try to keep it out of the water as much as possible. Even though these things say that they're waterproof, they're not made for submersion, sorry about that. So inevitably you can get them wet, but there's always that chance that something could go wrong. So just keep that in mind whenever you're doing that. But as you can tell, we've got a beautiful dip all the way around. We've got very good coloring, and we've got our line exactly where we want it, which is right on the bottom of it. So then that way, whenever the scope is sitting like this, it will pretty much look great on the gun. All right, so now that we've got everything all touched up, everything's clear coated, we're finally able to show you guys the end result. So we've got all of our tape pulled off, and the scope came out amazing. It looks very good. You've got excellent color all the way around the entire scope. Again, on the bottom, we do have our line coming right up through here, which isn't a big deal because it's going to be sitting like this on the gun. And so you can see we've got a very good edge all the way around in here for the front reticle, as well as for the back reticle. Everything looks really good. And also too, just to kind of give it a little bit more extra and to make it look a little bit better, we went ahead, we taped off the Vortex Scopes logo. We also taped off all of the dot right here that you can see, as well as everything in here. And of course, you can still turn it just like it needs to. Everything is very smooth and easy to turn. We've also taped off the crossfire and the actual reticle size and the magnification as well. And on the other side, we've got the same thing, and we also taped off the Vortex logo on the side turret just to kind of make sure that it looks a lot more like a factory scope, and that it doesn't look like, oh, everything's just dipped over and it doesn't have any markings on it or anything like that. The one thing to definitely remember is, if you are doing a scope, is you definitely want to tape off that serial number, because that's the only way that a scope manufacturer is going to know what scope this is and if it's still under warranty or anything like that. So now, one thing to remember is, whenever you are dipping scopes, is that a lot of the times if you dip the scope and it's not the manufacturer dipping the scope, but if you have it done aftermarket or anything like that, it probably will void the warranty. Now, there are some companies where they say that you're perfectly fine and the warranty is still good. Now, that's something that you definitely want to check and make sure on before you actually get this done, because technically you are submerging this entire part all the way down in the water and pulling it right back out, and then just showering it like crazy with tons of water. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. A lot of the higher end scopes, we've done a lot of them before, they've all worked flawlessly, but you always get that one scope in that you want to make sure that you're fully covered. So definitely check with the manufacturers on that, just to make sure that the scope can be dipped or that they recommend it or anything like that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I know we always do. If you have any questions or comments, definitely leave them below. We'd love to hear from you about any tips and tricks that you'd like to see next, as well as what are your thoughts on the scope itself. How do you think it come out? And if you have any questions on it. Also too, if you haven't already, definitely hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you subscribe to our weekly tips and tricks videos, where we show everything on dipping scopes to dipping just about anything, even custom coatings in general. So I'm Bryan from Liquid Concepts, and we're making hydrographics great again. We'll see you guys next time.